welcome to this sobering edition of Springfield Career Insights. Tonight, we enter a space that should be sacred but has become unsafe. Across Africa, homes are turning hostile. Violence is rising, not in alleyways, but in kitchens, bedrooms, and living rooms. The very architecture of family is under siege. This is not just a crisis of bruises and broken bones. It is a collapse of emotional infrastructure, a failure of communication, compassion, and cultural accountability. We ask, is domestic violence a private shame or public emergency? Are our laws protecting victims or preserving silence? And when men suffer too, how do we narrate their pain without erasing the broader struggle? This conversation resists sensationalization. It demands empathy, clarity, and courage. We are deeply honored to host His Excellency Dr. Godfrey Gandawa, President of Springfield Research University. Tonight, he joins us not to generalize, but to galvanize, to decode the emotional sabotage behind domestic violence, and to offer schematic pathways towards relational peace. Welcome, President, to the show.
Thank you, Advocate. Tonight's theme is not just urgent, it is intimate. Domestic violence is not a headline, it is a heartbreak. It is the quiet collapse of homes that were meant to heal, not harm. We must stop treating violence as a moment. It is a system built on emotional illiteracy, economic strain, and cultural silence. At Springfield, we teach that relationships are not spontaneous. They are structured. And when that structure fails, violence fills the vacuum. Let us be clear. Violence against women is a crisis, but violence against men must not be editorially excluded. Pain has no gender. Tonight, we do not just diagnose the problem. We begin to design the solution. Let us restore homes as sanctuaries, not battlegrounds. Let us teach that love is not possession, it is protection. I'm honored to begin this necessary reckoning.
Thank you, Professor. What is fueling the rise of domestic violence in African homes? Is it poverty, patriarchy, or emotional illiteracy?
It is not one flame. It is a furnace fed by poverty, patriarchy, and emotional illiteracy. But the smoke we see is not just from broken homes. It is from broken systems. Poverty tightens the walls. Patriarchy silences the wounds. Emotional illiteracy blinds the soul. And in that darkness, violence finds room to grow. We have taught our sons to provide, but not to process. We have taught our daughters to endure, but not to escape. And we have built homes with walls, but no emotional windows. Domestic violence is not just a crime. It is a curriculum failure, a policy silence, a cultural inheritance we must now reject. Education 6.0 demands emotional architecture. LICAMS embeds relational literacy. And if we do not teach our children how to feel, we will keep raising adults who only know how to fight. So yes, poverty plays its part. Patriarchy holds the script. But emotional illiteracy directs the scene. And until we rewrite that script, the violence will not end. It will simply change actors.
Thank you, Professor. When violence erupts behind closed doors, is it a private matter or a public emergency?
Behind closed doors, a scream is muffled, a bruise is hidden, a soul is silenced. But silence is not privacy, it is complicity. Violence in the home is not a domestic whisper, it is a national siren. It is not a private matter, it is a public emergency. Because the home is the first institution, and when it collapses, the republic trembles. We cannot build sovereign economies on fractured families. We cannot preach peace while permitting pain in the places we call sacred. Every slap behind a curtain echoes in the courtroom. Every broken bond is a broken policy. This is not just about protection. It is about prevention. It is about pedagogy. It is about power. Education 6.0 must teach emotional sovereignty. LICEMS must legislate relational safety. And our institutions must stop treating trauma as a footage in the family story. So, no, violence at home is not private. It is a breach in the national fabric. And until we mend it, we are all at risk.
Thank you, Professor. Are our laws protecting victims or preserving perpetrators?
The law is a mirror, but what does it reflect? Does it show the bruised child or the smiling abuser? Does it echo the cry of help or the silence of bureaucracy? Too often, our statutes wear suits, but not scars. They speak in clauses, but not in compassion. Victims are told to wait, to file, to prove, while perpetrators roam. Protected by procedural fog. This is not justice, it is preservation. Not of peace, but of power. When the law becomes a labyrinth, only the cunning escape. And the wounded remain trapped in corridors of delay. We must rewrite the legal script, not just to punish, but to protect. Not just to prosecute, but to prevent. LICEMS must embed legal empathy, SIM must rewire institutional response, and Education 6.0 must teach that justice is not a courtroom performance. It is a cultural covenant. So I ask again, are our laws protecting victims or preserving perpetrators? The answer is unclear. So if the answer is unclear, then the law itself is complicit.
Thank you, Professor. How do economic pressures translate into emotional aggression?
Yeah. So when the wallet empties, the heart hardens. When the table is bare, the temper is full. Economic pressure is not just fiscal. It is emotional, it is spiritual, it is architectural. A man denied dignity will seek dominance. A woman denied urgency will absorb anguish. And children raised in scarcity will inherit volatility. We speak of inflation in numbers, but it inflates frustration. We measure GDP, but we ignore GDA, which is gross domestic aggression. Poverty is not passive, it provokes. It corrodes patience. It weaponizes silence. And in homes where hope is rationed, aggression becomes currents. But this is not inevitable. It is programmable. Education 6.0 must teach economic resilience. LICAMS must embed emotional budgeting. And SEAM must rewire institutional response to treat economic strain as a relational emergence. Because when money disappears, love must not. When jobs vanish, empathy must not. And when pressure rises, our pedagogy must rise with it. So yes, economic pressure translates into emotional aggression, but only when we fail to translate the pain into policy.
Thank you, Professor. Is domestic violence a failure of love or a failure of logic?
Love does not bruise. It does not belittle. It does not break bonds and call it passion. So, no, this is not love's failure. It is logic's collapse. It is pedagogy's silence. It is a schematic void where emotion runs wild and reason retreats. We have romanticized pain. We have theologized submission. We have normalized control. And in doing so, we have abandoned logic at the altar of sentiment. Domestic violence is not born of love. It is born of unprocessed trauma, unquestioned power, and unstructured emotion. Love, when true, is a sanctuary. Logic, when taught, is a safeguard. But when neither is present, the home becomes a battlefield. Education 6.0 must teach emotional reasoning. LICAMS must embed relational logic, and SEAM must rewire institutional response to treat domestic violence not as a private failure, but as a public schematic breach. Because when logic fails, love is misnamed. And when love is misnamed, violence is misdiagnosed. So I say again, domestic violence is not a failure of love. It is a failure of logic. And we must now teach logic as a form of love.
Thank you, Professor. Can men be victims too? And if so, why is their pain so often dismissed?
Yes, men bleed, not just from fists, but from silence, from shame, from the cultural script that says, strong men do not suffer. That's what they say. They say strong men do not suffer. But strength is not the absence of pain. It is the courage to name it. Men can be victims, and they are. In homes, in relationships, in systems that only recognize their rage, but never their ruin. We have taught our boys to fight, but not to feel. To protect, but never to be protected. And so when they are wounded, we call it weakness. We call it failure. We call it unmanly. Windoda wena. That's what they say. This is not just emotional illiteracy. It is institutional blindness. It is a failure of empathy, codified in policy, amplified in culture. Education 6.0 must teach emotional equality. LICAMS must embed gender-neutral protection, and SEAM must rewire institutional response to recognize pain wherever it resides. Because when a man cries, it is not a spectacle, it is a sign. And when we dismiss his pain, we delay his healing. we distort his humanity. So yes, men can be victims. And until we say that without hesitation, we remain complicit in a culture that punishes vulnerability and rewards silence.
Thank you, Professor. Let's take a break and listen to a song called Phyllis William Ted.
Easy when near Springfield, lapho umthetho ubiza abafundi bavuka baphula udongeni ngokuthakazelela nangokuhlusiwe baphakama bakhumangisa ithiyori nokusebenza baphendula kubizelwa komthetho iSpringfield Law Clinic lapho amaphupho ethuthuka ukhuthaza abantu kukhanya kakhulu kusekele khulwini ukuya esitaladini isilwa ngenhlonipho nengenhlala kahle usuku nosuku ukufunda ngezandla ukwakha imiqondo yesikhathi esizayo ukuphatha uhlelo kungashiya umuntu emuva ngokuhamba kwesikhathi zonke izimangalo abathola bakhulisa ukuzethemba ukhazulula izinkinga kudidiyelwe iSpringfield Law Clinic lapho amaphupho ethuthuka ukhuthaza abantu kukhanya kakhulu kusukela ekhulwini ukuya esitaladini isilwa ngenhlonipho nengenhlala kahle usuku nosuku amathoni techno nomoya wezwe izithako ze-electronic zisenza sibemunye zizwa amandla zizwa umdlandla iSpringfield Law Clinic siphumelela dance for justice hearts ignite sihlangana sikhanye zinkanyezi iSpringfield Law simile phezulu ubulungiswa kubo bonke iSpringfield Law thola ukubizelwa ndawonye sukuja emphakathini wethu senza isinqumo siza labo abaswele sinika isandla ngokuthola yonke impumelelo sikhula sakha ushintsho kulo mhlaba iSpringfield Law Clinic to amaphupho ethuthuka ukhuthaza abantu kukhanya kakhulu kuswele ekhulwini ukuya esitaladini isilwa ngenhlonipho nengenhlala kahle usuku nosuku sihlangene simunye futhi siqinile iSpringfield Law Clinic lapho siphila khona ngokuhamba kwesinyathelo umdanso nengoma silwa ngenhlonipho usuku lonke.
Welcome back. Let's continue with our discussion. What role does unemployment play in escalating household hostility?
Yeah. So unemployment is not just the absence of income. It is the erosion of identity, the shrinking of self-worth, the quiet humiliation that turns into loud hostility. When purpose is lost, patience thins. When contribution fades, control rises. A job is more than a paycheck. It is emotional scaffolding. Remove it, and the home begins to sway. So Education 6.0 must teach economic dignity. Lichens must embed relational resilience, because when work disappears, aggression often takes its place.
Thank you, Professor. Are cultural norms enabling abuse by romanticizing control and silencing dissent?
Yes, culture can be a cloak. It can dress control as care and silence as virtue. We have called obedience love. We have called dominance tradition. And in doing so, we have baptized abuse in the language of respect. When dissent is punished and control is praised, the home becomes a theater, not of harmony, but of harm. So Education 6.0 must unlearn toxic reverence. Leakens must re-script relational norms because culture should protect, not excuse.
Thank you, Professor. How do children internalize violence and what does it do to their future relationships?
So, children do not forget what they survive. They archive it. They rehearse it. And one day, they repeat it. So, violence becomes vocabulary. Control becomes comfort. And love becomes a battleground. We raise them in chaos, then wonder why they choose conflict. We silence their pain, then question their detachment. Education 6.0 must teach emotional fluence. Leakens must embed relational healing. Because if we do not interrupt the cycle, we will inherit its consequences.
Thank you, Professor. Is emotional abuse less visible but equally lethal?
Yeah, it leaves no bruises, but it breaks the soul. So emotional abuse is quiet violence. It rewires self-worth. And without taking away from women, normally women do this a lot. To men, emotionally, they hate them emotionally. But because there are no bruises, people don't see it. So emotional abuse is quiet violence. It rewires self-worth. It erodes identity and poisons intimacy. Just because it's unseen doesn't mean it's unreal. It kills slowly, in silence, in shame, in solitude. Then Education 6.0 must teach emotional defense. Leakens must legislate invisible wounds. Because what we cannot see still scars.
Thank you, Professor. Can Springfield Global lead a continental framework for domestic peace and relational ethics?
Not only can we must. Springfield Global is not just an institution, it is an architecture, a sovereign blueprint for emotional justice, relational integrity, and domestic peace. We do not wait for permission. We author the framework. We embed the ethics. We operationalize the healing. Education 6.0 is our compass. Leakens is our code. SIM is our secretary. And through Springfield Global, Africa will not just respond to violence. It will reprogram the home.
Thank you, Professor. Are religious institutions confronting abuse or concealing it?
The pulpit must not become a hiding place. Holiness cannot excuse the harm. Too often, abuse is wrapped in scripture, silenced by hierarchy, and buried beneath the ritual. When institutions protect reputation over restoration, they betray their calling. Faith must confront, not conceal. It must heal, not hide. Education 6.0 demands moral clarity. Leakens must embed institutional courage because silence in sacred spaces is not sanctified. It is complicit.
Thank you, Professor. What happens when women retaliate? Does justice recognize their trauma or punish their resistance?
So, when a woman fights back, because we are assuming the man has started. So, when a woman fights back, the courtroom often flinches, not at the violence she endured, but at the audacity of her defiance. Retaliation is read as rebellion, not survival. Her pain is cross-examined, her resistance pathologized, but trauma is not tidy. It does not wait for permission. It screams, it strikes, survive. So justice must evolve. SIM demands it. Education 6.0 must encode it, because a system that punishes pain perpetrates it. We must rescript the law to hear the wounded, not just judge their wounds.
Thank you, Professor. Should schools teach emotional intelligence as a core subject?
Yeah. So if we teach algebra, but not empathy, we graduate minds that can calculate, but not connect. Emotional intelligence is not extracurricular, like what our education system is doing now. They think emotional intelligence is extracurricular. It is not. It is infrastructural. It governs how we lead, how we listen, and how we live. So Education 6.0 embeds it. LICAMS operationalizes it. Because emotional fluency is not a soft skill, it is sovereign logic. Schools must not just instruct, they must attune. To teach emotional intelligence is to future-proof humanity.
Thank you, Professor. Is domestic violence a symptom of deeper identity crisis?
Violence at home is not just physical. It is ontological. It erupts where identity collapses, where power replaces purpose, and control masquerades as care. Domestic violence is often a symptom of dislocated selfhood, of inherited rage, of unresolved histories. SIM reveals the schema. Education 6.0 reframes the root, because to treat violence without tracing identity is to medicate the wound while ignoring the infection. We must reauthor the self before we can rewire the home. Self first, then the home.
Thank you, Professor. How do we narrate male rage with accountability, not apology?
Male rage is often romanticized as passion, as pressure, as pain misunderstood. But the rage is not sacred. It is not exempt. It must be narrated. Not with apology, but with accountability. We must dismantle the myth that anger is masculine currents and replace it with emotional literacy, with schematic responsibility. LICAMS encodes this shift. Education 6.0 demands it, because when rage is excused, violence is rehearsed. To narrate male rage rightly is to strip it of privilege and script it with consequence.
Thank you, Professor. Let's take a break and listen to a song called Guidance of the Soil.
From war-torn skies to silent streets, we rise with struggle
Training runs through storm and flame, yet kindness fuels our every aim. We fight to heal, we serve to stand, building hope with steady hand. We are the shield, we are the vow, holding peace through fire and plow. Lead with justice, act with grace, guarding every sacred place. Stand on rising that we trace, like a noose builds the healing space. Sin refines the battle's art. Springfield forged the sovereign heart. We are the quiet strength. Peace is our mission, breadth and length. Africa's keeper, proud and true. The battlefield, no roaring heart. We are the old, the quiet strength. Peace is our mission, breadth and length. Africa's keepers, proud and true. The battlefield knows what we do.
Welcome back. Let's continue with our discussion. Can therapy become a normalized tool, not a whispered taboo?
Therapy must leave the shadows. It is not a confession booth. It is a calibration chamber. To seek help is not weakness. It is a schematic wisdom. It is emotional authorship. When therapy is taboo, pain becomes tradition. Silence becomes inheritance. So Education 6.0 reframes this. SIM embeds it because the healing must be habitual, not hidden. We must normalize the mirror, not fear it. Therapy is not retreat. It is rehearsal for resilience.
Thank you, Professor. Are our shelters safe or merely symbolic?
A shelter must be shielded, not just a signal. Too many are built on optics, not for occupancy. They echo safety, but do not embody it. Likhaya nje. A locked door means nothing. If trauma walks freely inside, a roof is not refugee. If dignity is denied beneath it, Lickham's audits this logic. Education 6.0 reconfigures it. Because symbolism without safety is institutional betrayal. We must not decorate protection. We must operationalize it.
Thank you, Professor. What does justice look like for children who witness violence daily?
Justice for children is not a courtroom verdict. It is rescripted childhood. When violence becomes routine, memory becomes a minefield. Play becomes panic. Home becomes a hazard. We must not ask them to testify before we teach them to trust. Not demand resilience before restoring safety. So Education 6.0 encodes this empathy. SIM reframes the response because justice for the young is not retroactive. It must be anticipatory. So to protect a child is to rewrite the world before it wounds them.
Thank you, Professor. Is silence the real accomplice in domestic abuse?
Silence does not shield the victim. You see? So it shelters the perpetrator. It is the quiet nod, the unspoken excuse, the institutional shrug. Domestic abuse thrives, not just in violent rooms, but in silent corridors. So when communities hush, when systems delay, when leaders deflect, silence becomes a strategy. So Education 6.0 confronts this complicity. Lickens encodes vocal accountability because silence is not neutral. It is infrastructural betrayal. To break the cycle, we must break the silence.
Wow, this is amazing. Let's take a commercial break and stay tuned.
Join Springfield Research University, the university that shapes the future. Admissions for August, September 2025 are now open. Introducing Education 6.0, driven by STEMA, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, medicine, and automation to STEMatize, industrialize, and modernize, SIM. We offer innovative and industry-relevant undergraduate, master's, and doctoral programs. Leap ahead with SRU. Apply today at www.springfieldresearch.university or WhatsApp +268 7619 2898. Springfield Research University. The globe is here. Where are you?
Welcome back. Let's continue with our discussion. Can we confront violence against men without undermining the broader fight for women's safety? And how do we narrate male vulnerability with dignity, not defensiveness?
Justice is not a zero-sum ledger. To protect men is not to abandon women. To name male pain is not to dilute female suffering. Violence wears many faces, and silence wears them all. Male vulnerability must be narrated not with defensiveness, but with dignity, not as rebuttal, but as a revelation. So Education 6.0 scripts this balance. SIM embeds plural protection, because true safety is not selective, it is sovereign. We must build a justice architecture where every wound is witnessed and no voice is weaponized against another.
Thank you, Professor. Can Education 6.0 embed emotional architecture into family systems?
Families are not just biological units, advocate. They are emotional ecosystems. And like any system, they require design, not default. Education 6.0 is not confined to classrooms. It is a sovereign scaffold that codes empathy, calibrates conflict, and choreographs care. So emotional architecture must be embedded, not inherited. It must be rehearsed, not assumed. When families operate without schema, love becomes erratic, discipline becomes distortion. So Lickens encodes relational logic. SIM maps emotional flow, because sovereign families require sovereign frameworks. To transform the continent, we must first transform the home. You can't expect to transform the continent before you even transform the home.
Thank you, Professor. And finally, President, what message would you leave with our viewers as they seek to transform homes from battlegrounds into sanctuaries?
Thank you, Advocate. Let every corridor carry care. Let every room reject rage. Let every family become a sovereign system of safety. Because sanctuary is not a slogan, it is a decision, a discipline, a daily refusal to rehearse harm. If you want peace at home, start with truth. Speak what hurts, interrupt what repeats, and protect what heals. To the men and women who strike, shame, or silence, you are not powerful. I repeat, to the men and women who strike, shame, and silence, You are not powerful. You are unwell. And the home is not your courtroom. It is not your kingdom. It is not your stage for unresolved wars. Step back, seek help, or be removed. To the children who witness what they cannot name, you are not invisible. You are not to blame. Your silence is not consent, and your future must not inherit this violence. Speak, cry, write. We will listen. To the government, sanctuary is not a campaign. It is a constitutional obligation. Fund the shelters, train the magistrate, protect the whistleblowers, and legislate with the agency of a burning house. No framework can substitute courage. No policy can parent your silence. The transformation begins, not with systems, but with you. Thank you, Advocate, for having me.
President, thank you for exposing domestic violence not as episodic misconduct, but as a failure of emotional infrastructure. Tonight, you have decoded the silence that shields abuse and reminded us that relationships, like institutions, require design, not assumption. Through Education 6.0, we have reframed emotional literacy as sovereign logic. We have shown that when intimacy lacks architecture, chaos becomes culture and homes become battlegrounds. You have reminded us that violence is not spontaneous, it is scaffolded. And when institutions ignore emotional logic, they become complicit in relational collapse. To our audience, if you are ready to embed emotional intelligence into your leadership, challenge the silence that enables abuse, and co-author frameworks that restore dignity, then join us. Visit www.springfieldresearchuniversity.net and become part of the continental effort to re-engineer intimacy with integrity. That concludes tonight's edition of Springfield Career Insights. May these reflections recalibrate your emotional algorithms, restore your relational literacy, and remind you love without logic is not liberation, it is liability. I am Advocate Clarence, your host. Until next time, protect with purpose. Good night.
See swati lines while seamlessly incorporating English for a multilingual tapestry. Genjabulo sihlomeli impilo leyinhle lena. Hey hey, siyakhuphuka, tikiti lethu Tanza lungakhiwa. Hey hey, siyakhuphuka, sonke siyavumelana, ngemjululo muhle sonke similela. Hey hey, siyakhuphuka, tikiti lethu Tanza lungakhiwa. Hey hey hey, siyakhuphuka, sonke siyavumelana, ngemjululo muhle sonke similela.
Unlock your future. The doors swing wide. Springfield Research University. Your future's bright. From undergraduate to doctoral dreams, in STEM fields we lead supreme. Unlock your future, the time is now. Springfield's calling, we'll show you how. Law, forestry, actuarial science, psychology, and more. Join the alliance.
knowledge we proudly stand. Education and research hand in hand, building a future where dreams expand.
Unlock your future, the time is now. Springfield's calling, we'll show you how. Law, forestry, actuarial science, psychology, and more. Join the alliance. Unlock your dreams, unlock your life. Springfield's here to guide your stride.
Doors are opening to a world so grand. In STEM fields we proudly stand.
Springfield's programs are guiding light. Together we conquer, our future bright. Who's ready to win all their dreams? We are, we are, we are. We are, Springfield's calling, let's enroll. We will unlock your future. The time is now. Springfield's calling, we'll show you how.
Law, forestry,
Actuarial science, psychology, and more. Join the alliance. Unlock your dreams, unlock your life. Springfield's here to guide your stride.
together we conquer. No challenge too steep.
Springfield Research University, our guiding star.
In the world of education, we'll go far.
Rise of the quantum thinkers ignite. Quantum thinkers shining bright. From labs to lectures, they lead the way. Innovating, creating every day. Rise quantum thinkers, the future's yours. Springfield's calling, open doors. Science, tech, and endless dreams. Together we conquer in brilliant teams. Think beyond, think ahead. Quantum minds where dreams are bred. With curiosity and mind so grand. Quantum thinkers take a stand. From theories to practice they explore. Unlocking knowledge forevermore. Rise quantum thinkers, the future's yours. Springfield's calling, open doors. Science, tech, and endless dreams. Together we conquer in brilliant teams. Think beyond, think ahead. Quantum minds where dreams are bred. In Springfield's realm where ideas soar, quantum thinkers we adore. With passion and drive, they lead the fight. Building a future, shining bright. Calling to think beyond. We are. Who's ready to innovate and explore? We are. Quantum thinkers, let's rise.
voice, our guiding star. In the heart of Springfield, a new dawn breaks. With Channel Yamaswati, our future takes shape. Career insights, knowledge shared so bright. Together we rise, reaching new heights. Springfield's calling, let's unite. With Channel Yamaswati, we ignite. Innovation and growth, we lead the way. Together we shine, here to stay. Together we rise, together we shine. Springfield and Yamaswati, they're loved for all time. Together we rise, together we shine. Springfield and Yamaswati, partners for all time. Celebration time, our vision clear.